I didn't even notice she'd stayed. The music had faded to a hum beneath the clatter of empty bottles and half-laughed goodbyes. Most people had left hours ago, drifting into the night with the warm blur of too much wine and not enough inhibition. And then there was her, standing barefoot in my kitchen, sleeves rolled up, rinsing red Solo cups with this quiet, almost defiant calm, like the chaos around her had nothing to do with her, like she belonged there more than anyone else ever had. "Need a hand?" she asked, without looking up. I should have told her no. Should have thanked her, smiled, said goodnight, and closed the door behind her like I did with everyone else. But something about the way her voice broke the silence, soft, but sure, made me hesitate. "You're still here," I said instead, half smiling. She shrugged. Someone had to do the dishes. I watched her hands move under the water, slow, deliberate. The sleeves of her shirt were damp. One strand of hair clung to her neck, catching the glow from the overhead light. Everything in the room felt quieter with her in it, like the storm had passed, but she'd stayed. I moved beside her, shoulder to shoulder. We didn't talk much, just the occasional brush of an elbow, the accidental clink of two glasses too close. Silence that didn't feel awkward. When I handed her a towel, our fingers touched. Barely, but it was enough. She looked up at me then, really looked. And something unspoken passed between us, carried on that thin electric thread you only notice when it's too late to pull back. I cleared my throat, breaking the moment. "You didn't have to stay, you know." She smiled, drying a plate slowly. I know. That was the first time I realized. She wasn't staying to help. She was staying for something else. And suddenly, I couldn't remember the last time I wanted someone to stay this badly. Not like this. Not with eyes that seemed to see through every version of myself I pretended to be. And not with a silence that made my chest feel too tight. Like something was already happening between us, before either of us had the nerve to name it. The thing about late nights is they strip everything down. The distractions, the noise, even your defenses. We didn't need to say much. Her presence filled the room like something I hadn't realized I'd been waiting for. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her stack plates with quiet precision. The clock ticked past 2. Her hair was tied up messily now, a few strands escaping, framing her face. That sleepy, unbothered kind of beautiful that sneaks up on you. "You always clean like this after parties?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She glanced at me, smirking. "Only when the host forgets how to load a dishwasher." I laughed. Ouch. Her smile deepened, but then it faded. Just slightly. Like something tugged at the edges of her calm. A flicker of hesitation, gone almost as fast as it came. "Besides," she said, placing the last glass upside down, "I didn't feel like going home yet." She didn't look at me when she said it, which made me look at her even more. The quiet stretched again, not awkward, but thick. Charged. Like we were both holding our breath for something neither of us had the courage to ask for. I opened a window. The night air slid in, cool, a little damp. She leaned against the counter across from me now, arms folded like mine, mirroring me without meaning to. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "Yeah, just don't love being alone lately." That landed harder than I expected. Not dramatic, just honest. And it did something to me, that small confession. The way her voice dipped on the word alone. Like maybe she was asking me not to let her be. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." And I did. Too well. She looked up again, eyes darker now, but softer too. "It's weird," she said, "how quiet everything gets when people leave. Like the night's trying to remind you of something." I stepped closer. "Like what?" Her eyes flicked to mine, and held. "Like what you really want." Her words weren't flirtatious. They were a dare, and I felt it, low in my chest, crawling up my spine. That sense that this moment was no longer just about dishes or late-night company. It was about everything unsaid. Everything trembling just beneath the surface. And maybe, just maybe, what neither of us was ready to stop. The air felt warmer now, though the window was still open. Or maybe it was just us. The way she leaned slightly forward, like gravity had changed direction, not pulling her down, but toward me. And I wasn't sure if I moved closer first, or if she did. Only that the space between us didn't feel accidental anymore. "I should probably get going," she said, barely above a whisper. But she didn't move. Her eyes lingered on mine, then dipped to my mouth. Just for a second. Maybe less. But I saw it. Felt it. Like a touch that never landed. and still somehow left a mark. You could, I murmured, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. Her breath caught. She looked away, smiling, but not in amusement, more like frustration. Like she'd just lost a battle she didn't want to win. You always do that? She asked, eyes flicking back to mine. Make people feel things they're not supposed to. That made me blink. What am I making you feel? She didn't answer. Not with words. She stepped past me, slow, brushing my arm. The contact like static, too brief and too much at once. Her scent lingered, something warm and intimate, like skin and sleep and a faint trace of something floral. I turned. She was standing near the doorway now, one hand on the frame. Waiting. Watching. Her silhouette was outlined in the soft kitchen light, and I swear I could feel her gaze like a pressure against my ribs. You're not going to stop me? She asked. I shook my head, stepping toward her. No. Another step. But I don't think you really want to leave. Another. I think you're waiting for a reason to stay. Now I was inches away, close enough to see the hitch in her breath. The way her lips parted, just barely. How her pupils had darkened, her body stilled. You think too much, she whispered. My hand hovered near her hip, not touching, but close. Heat rising in the space between our skin like a question neither of us wanted to ask out loud. You feel too much, I whispered back. Her eyes closed, just for a moment, and when they opened, something had changed. Whatever line had existed between us before, it wasn't there now, and we both knew it. She didn't speak. She just stepped back, one slow movement into the room again, away from the door, away from goodbye. Her eyes never left mine. It was a small gesture, but it said everything. She stayed, and I followed. The floor creaked softly under us as we moved, careful, like the air might break if we moved too fast. I wanted to reach for her, but I didn't. Not yet. I think I needed to know she wanted this as much as I did. Not just the moment, but the surrender underneath it. She turned, slowly, resting her back against the wall. Waiting. A quiet challenge. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her breath as it met my collarbone. Her gaze rose to mine, steady, a little nervous, but unafraid. There was a long silence, and in it, I swear I heard everything her body wasn't saying. The way her fingers grazed the hem of her sleeve. The way her chest rose and fell, not quite steady. The way her lips parted, again, but still held back. I raised my hand slowly, letting it hover near her face. Just waiting. She leaned into it. My thumb brushed her cheek. Soft, barely a touch, but her body responded like I'd set something free in her. Her eyes fluttered closed, and when they opened again, she wasn't hesitating anymore. I kissed her, not with urgency, not yet, but like I had all night to figure out what she tasted like. It was slow, uncertain, and warm in a way that made my knees feel less reliable than they should have been. Her hands found my shirt, fingers twisting gently in the fabric, like if she didn't hold on, she might float away. We pulled back just enough to breathe, but her forehead stayed against mine. This feels like a mistake, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah. And neither of us moved. Because whatever it was, mistake, moment, whatever name we wanted to avoid giving it, it had already rooted itself deep. And now it was blooming. She didn't kiss me again right away. Instead, she just stood there, our foreheads still pressed together, eyes closed, like we were both trying to slow something down that didn't want to be slowed. Her fingers slid from my shirt to my chest, then paused, right where my heartbeat gave me away. And maybe that was the moment it became real. Not just attraction, but vulnerability. The kind that shows up when your guard is down and someone sees too much. I opened my eyes. She was watching me now, carefully, as if searching for a crack. A sign I'd pull back. Regret. Resistance. There wasn't any. I lifted my hand, trailing it from her jaw to her collarbone. That delicate space where skin goes soft and words become useless. Her eyes fluttered closed again. I didn't plan this, she murmured. I smiled softly. Me neither. She tilted her head slightly, letting my hand explore the slope of her neck. I could feel her pulse beneath my fingertips. It was racing. So was mine. I kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like I was trying to learn her through taste. Her lips parted under mine, and something in her melted. I felt it. The way her weight shifted, the way her breath caught in her throat, the way her fingers reached for my wrist as if needing to hold on. She pulled me with her, backward, into the living room, where the dim light from the kitchen barely reached. We didn't speak, just moved, half lost in instinct, half lost in the disbelief that this was really happening. Her hand slid under my shirt, not rushing, just exploring, mapping me like she didn't want to forget. And I let her. I let every wall I had fall, one by one, in the silence between our breaths. We ended up on the couch, not falling, not tumbling, but sinking, slowly, like our bodies were made of something heavier than flesh. She climbed into my lap, straddling me, not with urgency, but with certainty. Her hands rested on my shoulders, steadying herself. Mine found her waist, her back, the dip just above her spine. Places I never knew I'd ache to touch. Neither of us spoke. There was no need. Every part of me already knew what she was saying, and what she wasn't ready to say out loud. Stay. Feel this. Don't let it be just a moment. Time folded. There was only the sound of our breathing, uneven, overlapping, almost synchronized. Her thighs pressed against my hips, warm and trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what we were allowing. We were slow, careful, like two people walking barefoot through a memory they didn't want to end. I leaned back slightly to see her face. Her cheeks were flushed, lips parted, eyes wide, not with surprise, but with wonder, like she couldn't believe what she was feeling either. You okay? I asked softly. She nodded, then placed her hand over mine, guiding it up, over her side, to her ribs, then higher. A wordless answer. I swallowed hard, not from nerves, but from the gravity of it. The heat of her skin under my palm. The way she arched into my touch like it was something she'd needed for longer than either of us could admit. Our mouths met again, deeper this time, and messier. Her kiss was different now. Not just desire, but something tender layered beneath it. Like she needed to be kissed gently, like she'd been starved of softness and didn't trust it yet. I let her take the lead. Let her pull my shirt over my head with slow, clumsy movements. Let her eyes move over me like she was memorizing instead of just looking. She whispered, "You feel like fire." I smiled, breathless. "So do you." We moved slowly, our bodies sinking like a tide building beneath the surface. Her hips rolled, pressing into mine, searching, responding. And I held her tighter, like holding her could keep the moment from slipping into the before and after. Every shift of her weight sent sparks crawling through me. Not just heat, but emotion, rising too fast, too deep. Something about her, the way she looked at me, the way she touched me like I mattered, was undoing things I didn't know I'd locked away. I exhaled into her shoulder. "God, you're..." She silenced me with her mouth, not out of passion, but out of need. Like words were too dangerous now, like naming this would ruin it. And maybe she was right. So I didn't speak again. I just held her tighter, and let our rhythm say everything we were still too afraid to admit. She rested her forehead against mine again, breathing hard, skin glowing, strands of hair clinging to her neck and temples like she'd just stepped out of a dream that hadn't quite let her go. Neither of us moved. We just hovered, suspended in the stillness after all that movement, like the silence itself was holding us. My hands were still on her waist, her chest rising and falling against mine. Her fingers traced small circles on my shoulder, as if drawing shapes she couldn't say out loud. I think we were both afraid to speak. Afraid that if we did, the spell might break. And it was a spell, this strange, magnetic pull between us that had nothing to do with the party, or the hour, or the wine. It was something older. Something already written in our skin before tonight had given us the excuse to touch. She finally whispered, "This wasn't supposed to happen." "I know," I said, because it was the truth. She pulled back just enough to see my face, eyes searching mine with this aching softness that made my throat tighten, like she was waiting for me to regret it. But I didn't, not even a little. "I'm scared," she said, barely audible. "Of what?" I asked. "That this won't mean the same thing tomorrow." I felt her words land, sharp and close to the center of everything I wasn't saying either. But I didn't let go. Instead, I cupped her cheek again, brushed my thumb beneath her eye, and said the one thing I knew for sure. "It already does." Her eyes welled. Not tears exactly, but something close. And she nodded once, slowly, like that was the only answer she'd been hoping for. Then she leaned in. One more kiss, softer this time, lingering. And this time, when her body melted into mine, it wasn't just heat. It was trust, surrender, the kind that doesn't come from desire alone, but from finally letting someone see you, and knowing they're not going anywhere. We didn't fall asleep right away. She curled into me on the couch, her leg tangled with mine, fingers tracing absent patterns on my chest like she was still trying to make sense of what had just happened. So was I? The house was silent now, the kind of quiet that only shows up after something irreversible. Nothing left to say, nothing to undo. Just breath, warm skin, a sense of being known. I watched the way her eyes fluttered shut, the small smile on her lips. Vulnerable, uncomplicated, like she'd let go of something she'd been holding for too long. And I think I did too. Because this wasn't about lust anymore. It wasn't even about the kiss, or the way we moved together like we'd been waiting all our lives to fit into that rhythm. It was about being chosen, staying behind when everyone else left, touching each other like it meant something, because it did. The sun started to rise. Light crept in through the blinds in soft, gold stripes, brushing over her back, the curve of her shoulder, the place where our bodies met like they'd always belonged there. She stirred, groaning softly, and looked up at me with sleep-dazed eyes. I stayed too long, she whispered, but she didn't move. I kissed her hair. You didn't. She smiled, then nestled closer. And I knew, in that still, golden moment, that whatever we were before tonight, we weren't anymore. Because sometimes, staying late means more than just one night. Sometimes, it becomes the beginning of something you never saw coming. Something that won't leave, even if she does. Even if morning pulls us back to reality. Her warmth still lingers in my hands. Her breath still lives in the space between my ribs. She came to help me clean up, and never left. Not really.